The salvage ship drifted through the darkness of space like a metal ghost. Inside, Taemin sat alone in the pilot seat, his eyes fixed on the small moon ahead. He had been traveling for 3 weeks to reach this forgotten place. The star maps called it Ashara Prime, but nobody had visited this moon in over 200 years. Taemin was a salvage operator. He searched dead worlds for ancient technology and lost artifacts. It was lonely work, but he preferred it that way. 5 years ago, his crew had died in an accident. He blamed himself. Since then, he worked alone, speaking only to his ship's computer. The moon grew larger in his window. Its surface was gray and lifeless, covered in dust and old craters. Scans showed something unusual deep underground, a heat signature that should not exist on a dead world. Taemin guided his ship down toward the coordinates. He landed near a canyon that cut deep into the moon's crust. After putting on his environment suit, he grabbed his equipment and left the ship. The gravity was light here, making each step feel like floating. He walked to the edge of the canyon and looked down into the darkness. His helmet light barely reached the bottom. Taemin checked his gear one more time, then activated his rappelling line. Slowly, he descended into the depths. The walls around him were strange. They looked like crystal, catching his light and throwing it in rainbow colors. After 20 minutes of descent, his feet touched solid ground. He was in a massive cavern, larger than any building he had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above him, but what caught his attention was the glow ahead. Taemin walked forward carefully. His breath echoed inside his helmet. The glow grew stronger with each step. Then he saw it and stopped completely. In the center of the cavern sat an egg. But this was not like any egg he had seen in museums or databases. It was huge, almost 2 meters tall, smooth and perfect. Colors moved across its surface like oil on water, shifting from deep blue to purple to colors he had no names for. Inside the shell, something glowed with a soft, steady pulse, like a heartbeat. He approached slowly, afraid that moving too fast might break whatever magic kept this thing alive. His suit's scanner was going crazy, displaying data that made no sense. The biological readings were off the charts. The age estimate kept changing. 1,000 years, 1 million years, 10 million years. Taemin reached out with a gloved hand and touched the shell. It was warm. He pulled his hand back quickly. Nothing on this dead moon should be warm. Nothing should be alive. He spent the next hour taking readings and pictures. His computer could not identify the species. That was impossible. Humanity had cataloged millions of alien species over the past 800 years. Every known creature in the galaxy was in the database. But not this one. Back on his ship, Taemin could not stop thinking about the egg. He sat in his cabin, going through old files and ancient records. Most people did not know that humanity kept archives from dead civilizations. Thousands of extinct species, gone for millions of years, left behind fragments of their history. He searched for days. Finally, he found something. A stone tablet from the Velkari civilization, dead for 6 million years. The translation was rough, but it mentioned sky sovereigns and eternal wings. Another file, from a different species extinct for 8 million years, spoke of the first flame and star dragons. More and more fragments appeared. Different languages, different species, different time periods. But they all said the same thing. Dragons were real. Not the small creatures from Earth's old myths. These were massive, intelligent beings that flew between stars without ships. They were teachers and guides to younger species. They existed across the entire galaxy. And then, 12 million years ago, they vanished completely. Every single one, gone in an instant during an event called the Great Silence. Taemin leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had found the egg of a species that had been extinct for 12 million years, a species that every living civilization had forgotten. They had become myths and legends, nothing more. But the egg was real, and something was alive inside it. He knew what he should do. Galactic law was clear. Any biological discovery of this level must be reported immediately to the Council. They would send scientists and soldiers. They would take the egg. They would cut it open to study it. The creature inside would die before it even lived. Tae-min had spent 5 years alone, punishing himself for the deaths of his crew. He had accepted that he would always be alone. But touching that egg, feeling its warmth, sensing the life inside it, something changed in him. He recognized what he felt through his glove: loneliness. The creature inside that egg was the last of its kind, completely alone in a galaxy that had forgotten its species ever existed. Tae-min understood that feeling perfectly. He made his decision. It took him 2 more days to safely extract the egg from the cavern and bring it aboard his ship. He built a special chamber for it, carefully controlling the temperature and atmosphere based on the readings he had taken. The egg sat in the center of his cargo bay, glowing softly, its pulse steady and strong. Tae-min filed a false report, claiming he found nothing of value on Ashara Prime. Then he plotted a course away from civilized space, toward the frontier regions where questions were rarely asked. As his ship's engines hummed to life, he stood in the cargo bay, looking at the egg. He did not know what would happen next. He did not know if he was making the right choice, but he knew he could not let them take it, could not let them kill the last dragon before it even had a chance to see the stars. The ship lifted off from the gray moon, leaving no trace that anyone had ever been there. In the cargo bay, the egg's glow grew slightly brighter, its pulse slightly faster, as if it knew something had changed. Tae-min sat in the pilot seat and engaged the jump drive. Space bent and twisted around his ship as it leaped toward the next star system. Behind him, in the cargo bay, the egg pulsed in the darkness. Then he saw it. A hairline crack, thin as a thread, appeared on the egg's surface. Then another, and another. Tae-min's breath caught in his throat. He stared at the monitor showing the cargo bay. The cracks spread slowly across the shell, glowing from within. The pulse quickened, beating faster and faster like a drum announcing something ancient awakening after an impossibly long sleep. He had thought he would have weeks, maybe months. Time to prepare, time to plan, time to figure out what to do. He was wrong. The egg was hatching. Tae-min unbuckled and ran toward the cargo bay, his heart pounding in his chest, knowing that everything in the galaxy was about to change. Behind him, through the ship's windows, the stars streaked past in ribbons of light, indifferent to the miracle occurring in the small vessel racing through their midst. The last dragon was coming into the world, and a lone human would be the first thing it would see. Tae-min burst through the cargo bay door, nearly tripping over his own feet. The egg was covered in cracks now, light pouring through each line like liquid gold. The pulsing had become so fast it was almost continuous, and he could hear something, a sound between a hum and a song that made his teeth vibrate. He stopped at a safe distance, not knowing what to expect. Would it be dangerous? Would it see him as food? As an enemy? His hand moved unconsciously toward the plasma cutter on his belt. Then the egg shattered. It did not break apart messily. Instead, the shell dissolved into glowing particles that hung in the air for a moment before fading away like dying stars. And there, standing in the center of where the egg had been, was the dragon. It was not the massive beast from the ancient records. It was small, about the size of a large dog, standing on 4 legs with wings folded against its sides. Its scales shifted colors as Tae-min watched, moving from midnight blue to deep violet to something that looked like the space between stars. Each scale caught the light differently, creating patterns that hurt his eyes if he stared too long. But it was the eyes that froze him in place. They were large and golden, with pupils like a cat's, and they were looking directly at him with an intelligence that was unmistakable. This was not an animal. This was a person. The dragon took one careful step forward, then another. It moved with grace, despite clearly never having walked before. Tae-min remained perfectly still, barely breathing. The dragon stopped right in front of him, close enough that he could feel heat radiating from its body. Then something happened that Tae-min would never be able to fully explain to anyone else. The dragon looked into his eyes. And suddenly Tae-min was not just seeing the dragon, he was feeling it. Emotions that were not his own flooded through him. Curiosity, caution, and underneath everything else, a profound sense of recognition. The dragon tilted its head, studying him. Then, impossibly, Tae-min heard a voice in his mind. It was not words exactly, but meanings and feelings that his brain translated into language. You are the one who found me. You are the one who chose to protect me instead of report me. You are alone, like I am alone. Tae-min's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the metal floor, staring up at the dragon. You can speak? You just hatched, and you can already speak? The dragon sat as well, wrapping its tail around its feet like a cat. I carry the memories of my kind, not everything. Fragments. Pieces of knowledge passed down through my genetic code. I know what I am. I know what happened to my people, and I know that I should not exist. What do I call you? Tae-min asked, his voice shaking slightly. The dragon was quiet for a moment, as if considering. Then, names are important to humans. I remember this from the ancient memories. You may name me if you wish. It seems appropriate. You gave me life by choosing to save me. Tae-min thought about it. He looked at the dragon's scales, the way they shifted like the sky changing from day to night. Hanul, he said finally. It means sky in my language. The dragon's eyes brightened, and Tae-min felt a pulse of approval through their strange connection. Hanul. Yes, that is good. Over the next few days, Tae-min learned just how special Hanul was. The dragon grew rapidly, gaining size each day. More importantly, Hanul could do things that should have been impossible. Small objects would float when Hanul concentrated on them. The ship's systems responded to Hanul's thoughts as easily as they did to manual controls. And once, when Tae-min burned his hand on a hot panel, Hanul touched it, and the burn healed in seconds. They talked constantly. Or rather, they shared thoughts and feelings through the connection between them. Hanul showed Tae-min fragmentary memories inherited from ancient dragons. Cities floating among the clouds, dragons dancing between stars, trailing light behind them. Younger species being taught and guided toward wisdom. But there were darker memories, too. Hanul shared images of a great gathering, every dragon in the galaxy linked together in their psychic network. Then suddenly, pain, betrayal, death spreading like poison through the connection. 12 million years ago, something killed every dragon simultaneously. The memories did not show what or who, but they showed the result. A galaxy-wide extinction in a single moment. On the 5th day, everything changed. Tae-min was eating breakfast when his ship's alarms screamed to life. He ran to the cockpit and pulled up the displays. 3 ships had just dropped out of jump space nearby. Military vessels, council ships. His blood went cold. Someone had found out about Hanul. They are coming for me, Hanul said, appearing in the cockpit doorway. The dragon was now the size of a small pony, growing faster every day. I can feel their intentions through their ship's communication systems. They want to capture me, study me. Take me apart to understand how I work. That's not going to happen, Tae-min said, his hands already moving across the controls. Hold on. He pushed the ship into evasive maneuvers just as weapons fire lit up the space where they had been. The Council ships pursued, faster and better armed than his small salvage vessel. Taemin used every trick he knew, diving into asteroid fields and using gravity wells to slingshot around moons. But it was not enough. More ships appeared. Word was spreading fast. The Council was not the only group hunting them now. Criminal organizations saw a valuable prize. Religious groups saw a god returned. Everyone wanted Hanul. "I can help," Hanul said suddenly. "Let me connect with the ship." "What do you mean?" "Trust me." Taemin nodded and stopped fighting the controls. Hanil moved forward and placed one clawed hand on the console. The ship's systems lit up like a festival. Displays showed information Taemin had never seen before. The engines hummed with power they should not have. Through their connection, he felt Hanul working with the ship as if they were one being. The dragon could see every system, every wire, every possible configuration. And more than that, Hanul could interface with the quantum computers that made jump drives work. "There is a place in my inherited memories," Hanul said. "Coordinates hidden in my genetic code. A safe place. But the jump is unstable. Dangerous." Weapons fire rocked the ship. Alarms screamed. More ships were arriving every minute. Taemin looked at the tactical display and knew they were out of options. "Do it!" he said. Hanul's eyes glowed brighter. The ship's jump drive began spinning up, but something was different. The usual calculations were being bypassed. The safety protocols were being overridden. They were going to jump through a path that no navigation computer would ever approve. The Council ships realized what was happening and opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around them. "Now," Hanul said. Reality twisted. Space bent in ways that made Taemin's stomach lurch and his vision blur. The ship was pulled forward into a tunnel of light and darkness that should not exist. He heard screaming, but he did not know if it was his own voice or the sound of the universe being torn apart around them. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. They floated in normal space again. But the Council ships were gone. Everything was gone. Taemin looked at the navigation display and felt his breath catch. They were nowhere near where they had been. They had jumped halfway across the galaxy in a single instant, something that should have required dozens of jumps and weeks of travel. And ahead of them, hidden behind a field of distorted space that bent light and sensor readings, was a star system that appeared on no maps. "Welcome to the last home of the dragons," Hanul said quietly. And through their bond, Taemin felt the dragon's deep sadness. "Welcome to where my people came to die." The star system was beautiful and terrible at the same time. As Taemin guided his ship past the distortion field, he saw what Hanul had meant. Orbiting around a dead star were rings, not rings of rock or ice like normal planets had. These rings were made of bodies. Millions of dragons floated in perfect orbital patterns, their bodies preserved somehow in the cold of space. Some were massive, the size of Earth's old whales. Others were smaller, perhaps younger. They hung there like a memorial to an entire species, silent and eternal. "My people," Hanul whispered through their connection. The dragon had moved to stand beside Taemin in the cockpit, staring out at the graveyard. When the end came, those who could manage it flew here. They came home to die together rather than alone across the galaxy. Taemin could not find words. He had seen death before. He had seen entire civilizations reduced to ruins. But this was different. This was genocide on a scale he could barely understand. "There," Hanul said, pointing with one claw toward the largest planet in the system. "That is where we need to go. The archive is there." The planet's surface was covered in structures that gleamed like crystal in the dim light of the dead star. Taemin brought the ship down carefully, landing near what looked like the largest building. When they stepped outside, he expected to need his environment suit, but Hanel shook their head. The atmosphere is maintained by ancient systems. It will support you. They walked together toward the crystal structure. It towered above them, easily 100 meters tall. The entrance opened as they approached, responding to Hanel's presence. Inside was a single vast chamber, and in its center stood something that looked like a tree made of light. "The archive of the dragons," Hanul said. "Every memory, every piece of knowledge from my species. Everything we were is stored here." Hanul approached the light tree and touched it. Immediately, the entire chamber came alive with images and sounds. Taimin stumbled backward as holographic displays filled the air around them, showing scenes from millions of years ago. He saw dragons in their prime. They were magnificent, soaring through space without ships, diving into stars and emerging unharmed. They visited worlds and taught primitive species how to use fire, how to build, how to think beyond survival. They were teachers and guides, helping younger races grow and develop. But they were not rulers. The dragons never conquered or controlled. They simply showed others the way forward, then stepped back to let them walk their own path. "We were the shepherds of the galaxy," Hanul said, their voice heavy with inherited sorrow. "For 200 million years we guided and protected. We asked nothing in return except to see others flourish." The images shifted, growing darker. Taimin saw the younger races the dragons had helped begin to grow powerful. They built ships and cities. They formed governments and councils, and slowly, fear began to grow. "What if the dragons decide to rule instead of guide?" Voices whispered in the archive's playback. "What if they decide we are not worthy? What if they take everything away?" The dragons never threatened anyone. They never showed any desire for power. But fear does not need facts to grow strong. Taimin watched as representatives from 73 different species met in secret. They called themselves the Architects. They spoke of protecting the galaxy from potential dragon tyranny. They spoke of freedom from dragon influence. But underneath the noble words, Taimin could see the truth. They were jealous, afraid, and greedy for the power the dragons possessed. The Architects created a weapon. It took them 1,000 years of secret research. They called it the Silence Virus. It was designed to target dragon neurological patterns specifically, spreading through the psychic network that connected all dragons across the galaxy. The archive showed the moment it was released. A single infected dragon, unaware they carried death within them, connected to the network during a great gathering. Within hours, the virus had spread to every dragon in existence. Within days, they were all dead. 12 million years ago, in less than a week, an entire species that had existed for 200 million years was exterminated. "But some of us knew it was coming," Hanul said. The images showed a small group of dragons working frantically. A few saw the signs. They could not stop the virus, but they could try to create a future. They made the egg, my egg. They encoded me with immunity to the virus and filled my genetic memory with fragments of our history. Then they hid me in a place the Architects would never look, a small, worthless moon with nothing of value. "Until I found you," Taimin said quietly. "Until you found me." The images continued. Taimin watched as the Architects, who became the foundation of what was now called the Galactic Council, systematically erased dragons from history. They destroyed records. They rewrote archives. Within a few thousand years, most species had forgotten dragons ever existed. They became myths, legends, stories told to children. And the Architects took everything the dragons had left behind. Their technology, their knowledge, their wisdom. The entire modern galactic civilization was built on stolen dragon inheritance, and no one alive knew it except the highest levels of the Council. They killed your people and then stole everything you created, Taemin said, anger burning in his chest. And they've been lying about it for 12 million years. Yes, Hanul said, and if they find me, they will kill me too. Because I am proof. Proof that dragons existed. Proof of what they did. I am evidence of the greatest crime in galactic history. Taemin clenched his fists. We have to tell everyone. We have to expose the truth. How? Hanul asked. Who would believe us? The Council controls all official records. They have power across the entire galaxy. We are one human and one dragon against the combined might of a civilization that spans thousands of worlds. Then we make them believe, Taemin said. We show them proof, this archive, these memories, everything. Before Hanul could respond, alarms blared from Taemin's ship. They ran back to the vessel and checked the sensors. Multiple ships were dropping out of jump space at the edge of the system. Council military vessels, dozens of them. How did they find us? Taemin demanded. They have been watching this place, Hanul said, accessing the ship's sensors with a thought. The archive shows it now. After they killed my people, the Council placed monitoring stations in this system, not to guard it, to watch and wait. They knew about the egg. They knew that someday, someone might hatch it. They wanted whoever it was to lead them here, to the archive, so they could destroy the final evidence. Taemin felt ice in his veins. They let me take you. Let us run. Let us come here. Yes, and now they will destroy this place and us with it. Everything the dragons were will finally be erased. The Council fleet was approaching fast. Taemin looked at the tactical display and knew they could not win a fight. They could not run. They had nowhere to go. But as he stared at the approaching ships, an idea formed in his mind. It was crazy, desperate, exactly the kind of plan that got people killed. But it was the only chance they had. Hanul, can you access all the data in that archive? Yes. I can download it all into my memory. Do it, right now. And then I need you to help me broadcast something. Broadcast what? Taemin smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Everything. We are going to tell the entire galaxy what the Council did. Every human ship, every independent station, every single person who can receive a transmission. We are going to break this story so wide that the Council cannot silence it. They will kill us before we finish, Hanul said. Probably, Taemin agreed. But some of the message will get through. Enough to make people ask questions. Enough to make them doubt. That's all we need. Hanul looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Let us make the galaxy remember dragons one last time. As the Council ships closed in, Taemin and Hanul worked frantically to prepare the broadcast. The dragon downloaded 12 million years of history, while Taemin set up transmission protocols that would blast their signal across every frequency, every channel, every network he could reach. The lead Council ship opened a communication channel. A face appeared on the screen. The alien was tall, with silver skin and eyes that held no mercy. I am Counselor Vexthar, the being said. You have violated galactic law. Surrender the creature immediately. No, Taemin said simply. Then you will die with it. Maybe. But first, let me show you something. Taemin activated the broadcast, and across human space, on hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships, people stopped what they were doing and watched as the truth of the Great Silence began to spread. The broadcast went out across human space like wildfire. On Earth, people stopped in the streets to watch public displays. On colony worlds at the edge of explored space, miners and farmers gathered around communication terminals. On military vessels and trading ships, crews watched in stunned silence. They saw everything. The archive's memories played out in perfect detail. The noble dragons guiding younger species. the secret meetings of the architects, the creation of the silence virus, the simultaneous death of every dragon in the galaxy, the 12-million-year lie, and they saw Hanul, the last dragon, proof that the Council's entire civilization was built on genocide and theft. Taimin watched his communication systems overload as responses flooded in. At first, there was confusion and disbelief. But humans were good at one thing above all others. They recognized injustice when they saw it. On a military station near human core worlds, Admiral Da-Un stood in her command center, watching the broadcast. She was old for a military officer, her face lined with scars from battles fought in the Council's name. She had lost family to what the Council called peacekeeping operations. She had always suspected something was wrong with the way the galaxy worked. Now she knew for certain. "Get me every ship in the fleet," she ordered. "Every captain, every crew. Show them this broadcast, then ask them a question. Are we going to let the Council murder the last innocent being in the galaxy, or are we going to do something about it?" The response was not instant. Humans debated. They argued. They questioned if the broadcast was real. But as more data came in from Taimin's transmission, as the archive's evidence piled higher and higher, doubt turned to certainty, and certainty turned to rage. Across human space, ships began to move. Military vessels went against orders and broke formation. Trading ships altered course. Even small private vessels changed direction. They all had one destination: the coordinates where Taimin and Hanul were making their stand. Taimin had no idea help was coming. He was too busy trying to survive. The Council ships opened fire, their weapons tearing through space toward his small salvage vessel. He threw the ship into evasive maneuvers that should have been impossible, pushing engines past their safety limits. "They are going to kill us," Hanul said calmly. The dragon stood beside him, one clawed hand on the console, helping control the ship's systems. "Not yet, they are not," Taimin growled. He pulled a maneuver that would have made any sane pilot sick, diving straight toward the planet's surface. The Council ships followed, firing continuously. One shot got through. The ship rocked violently, alarms screaming. Hull breach in the cargo bay, engines at 40%, shields failing. "I am sorry," Taimin said to Hanul. "I tried." "You gave me life," Hanul replied. "You showed me that not all species are like those who killed my people. Whatever happens now, I am grateful." The Council ships moved in for the final strike. Taimin closed his eyes, waiting for the end. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. Hundreds of ships dropped out of jump space all around them. Human ships, military destroyers and civilian freighters and everything in between. They came in waves, more and more appearing every second. "This is Admiral Da-Un of the Human Defense Fleet," a voice crackled over the communication system. "All ships, defensive formation around the salvage vessel. Council ships, stand down immediately." Counselor Vexthar's face appeared on Taimin's screen, twisted with fury. "You dare interfere with Council business? This is an act of war." "You want war?" Admiral Da-Yun's voice was cold. "We just watched your broadcast. We know what you did, what your ancestors did. You murdered an entire species and built your civilization on their graves. And now you want to kill the last survivor to hide your crime. If that is what the Council stands for, then yes, we are at war." The human fleet opened fire. What followed was chaos. The Council ships were more advanced, better armed, more numerous. But humans fought like they were insane. They used tactics the Council's computers could not predict. Suicide runs that made no logical sense. Ramming attacks that no civilized species would consider. And they were fearless. A human frigate took a direct hit that blew off half its hull. Instead of retreating, the captain aimed the dying ship directly at a Council destroyer and rammed it at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a ball of fire. "For the dragons!" The captain's final words echoed across all channels. On Earth, Dr. Bo-Ra watched the battle through long-range sensors. She was a xenobiologist, one of humanity's leading experts on alien life. When the broadcast had shown Hanul, she dropped everything she was doing and called in every favor she had to get access to a fast ship. Now she was racing toward the battle. Her small research vessel pushed far beyond safe speeds. She had spent her entire career studying extinct species. The chance to meet a living dragon, to help preserve the last member of such an incredible race. She would have flown through a star to make that happen. Hanul, she broadcast on all frequencies. My name is Dr. Bo-Ra. I am a human scientist. The archive showed that your genetic code contains templates for creating more dragons. If you survive this, I want to help you. I want to help your species live again. In Taimin's ship, Hanul's eyes widened. She understands. The humans understand what I carry inside me. Of course they do, Taimin said, grinning despite the explosions around them. Humans are crazy, but we are not stupid. You are not just the last dragon. You are the hope for all future dragons. The battle raged. More human ships arrived every minute. Word had spread faster than anyone thought possible. Humans were coming from every corner of their space, desperate to protect Hanul. But they were not the only ones. On a trading station in neutral space, an alien merchant watched the broadcast. His species had been one of the 73 architects. His ancestors had helped kill the dragons. He felt sick to his core. Without hesitation, he sent a message to his homeworld. What we did was wrong. I will not let it happen again. Other species began to defect from the council. Not all of them, not even most, but enough. Ships from a dozen different civilizations arrived to help the humans. The council fleet suddenly found itself outnumbered. Councillor Vexthar realized he was losing control. In desperation, he activated something that had been hidden on his flagship for millions of years. A weapon kept secret from all but the highest council members. The silence virus. If I cannot have the dragon, he broadcast to everyone, then no one will. The virus will kill the creature and spread to every human ship that has bonded with it through your communication systems. You will all die with the beast. Taimin felt ice in his stomach. The virus released, spreading through space faster than any physical object. It would reach them in seconds. But Hanul was calm. I was made to be immune, the dragon said, and I am connected to you, Taimin. And through your ship's systems, I am connected to every human vessel in this battle. Let me share my immunity. Can you do that? Taimin asked. I do not know, but I must try. Hanul closed their eyes and reached out with the psychic power inherited from ancient dragons. Through the connection with Taimin, through the ship's communication systems, through the network of human vessels all fighting together, the dragon spread a protective shield. The virus hit and bounced off harmlessly. Every human in the fleet felt it, a moment of connection with something ancient and powerful. They felt Hanul's presence in their minds, protecting them, saving them from the same weapon that had killed an entire species. It lasted only a second. But in that second, every human understood perfectly what the dragons had been. They felt the kindness, the wisdom, the gentle strength, and they knew, without doubt, that the galaxy had lost something precious 12 million years ago. The virus failed, but the attempt had consequences. Ships from more species arrived, horrified that the Council had tried to use such a weapon. The Council fleet was now completely surrounded, outgunned and outnumbered. "Surrender," Admiral Da'un commanded. "Surrender or be destroyed." Councillor Vexthar's face appeared one last time on the screens. His expression was twisted with hate and fear. This is not over. The Council has stood for millions of years. We will not fall to primitives and an animal. "We are not primitives," Taimin said, speaking for the first time directly to the Councillor. "And Hanul is not an animal. Your ancestors were afraid of what dragons might become, but humans are not afraid. We know exactly what dragons are. They are teachers. Protectors, friends, and we are going to help them come back. Never, Vexthar spat. I will destroy that creature myself. The counselor's ship broke formation and charged directly at Taemin's vessel, weapons blazing. But before it could fire the killing shot, a dozen human ships threw themselves in the way. They took the hits meant for Taemin and Hanul, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. This is why you lost, Admiral Da-Yun said quietly, as her fleet disabled the counselor's ship. Dragons died for each other, and humans will die for what is right. But you only care about power and secrets. That is why you will always lose. The council fleet surrendered within the hour. More ships kept arriving, not just human vessels now, but ships from dozens of species who had seen the broadcast and decided they could not stand with the council anymore. The evidence was overwhelming. The crime was undeniable. Counselor Vexthar was taken into custody. As human marines escorted him from his damaged flagship, he looked at Taemin one last time through a video feed. You have no idea what you have done. The galaxy was stable, ordered. Now there will be chaos. There was no order, Taemin replied. Just a very old lie. Lies always fall apart eventually. We just helped this one fall a little faster. Over the next few weeks, the galaxy changed faster than anyone thought possible. The broadcast had reached every corner of civilized space. Species that had been council members for millions of years demanded investigations. Ancient archives were opened. Evidence that had been buried for 12 million years came to light. The Galactic Council did not fall completely. It was too large, too established, but it was broken, reformed. New leadership emerged from species that had not been part of the original architects, and one of their first acts was to issue a formal apology to the dragon species and grant full protection to Hanul. Dr. Bora arrived at the hidden star system with a team of human scientists and volunteers from other species. She was small and energetic, talking faster than most people could follow when she got excited. And meeting Hanul made her very excited. This is incredible, she said, running scanners over Hanul while the dragon patiently stood still. Your genetic code is not just a blueprint for you. It is an entire archive of dragon genetics. Different bloodlines, different traits, different abilities. You carry the template to rebuild your entire species. I know, Hanul said, but I cannot do it alone. That is where we come in, Bora said, grinning. Humans have become very good at cloning and genetic engineering over the past few centuries. With your permission, we can use the templates in your DNA to create eggs, real dragon eggs. It will take time, years, maybe decades, but we can bring dragons back. Hanul looked at Taemin, who had not left the dragon's side since the battle ended. Do you trust them? I trust Bora, Taemin said. She is one of the good ones, and she is right. You were created to restore your species. Let us help you do that. The work began immediately. The crystal planet became a hub of activity. Scientists from across the galaxy arrived to help. They studied the Dragon Archive. They carefully analyzed Hanul's genetics, and slowly, carefully, they began creating the first new dragon eggs in 12 million years. It was delicate work. Dragons were not simple creatures. Their biology was incredibly complex, incorporating quantum-level processes that modern science barely understood. But humans had something that made them perfect for this task. They were stubborn. When something seemed impossible, they just worked harder. 6 months after the battle, the first egg was complete. It sat in a special chamber, glowing softly just like Hanul's egg had. Everyone gathered to watch as it hatched. The new dragon was small, even smaller than Hanul had been, with scales of brilliant gold. It looked around with confused eyes, taking in all the faces staring at it. Then Hanul stepped forward and touched the baby dragon gently with one claw. Taemin felt the psychic connection form between them. Hanul was sharing memories, knowledge, comfort with the newborn. helping it understand what it was and where it came from. The baby dragon made a sound, something between a chirp and a musical note. Then it did something that made everyone in the room hold their breath. It walked over to Dr. Bora and pressed its head against her hand. "It trusts you," Hanul said, wonder in their voice. "It knows you helped create it. It sees you as family." Bora's eyes filled with tears. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "Welcome to the galaxy. We have been waiting a very long time for you." More eggs followed. Each one was different, expressing different genetic templates from the archive. Some dragons were large and powerful, others were small and graceful. Their scales came in every color imaginable, and each one bonded with the people who helped bring them into the world. A pattern emerged quickly. Dragons did not see themselves as superior to other species. They never had. They saw themselves as part of a community, no more or less important than anyone else. The ancient memories Hanul shared showed this clearly. Dragons had been guides because they were old and experienced, not because they thought they were better. And the new dragons took to this naturally. They played with the children of scientists. They helped repair equipment with their ability to interface with technology. They listened to stories and shared their own fragmentary memories. They were people, not pets or tools. Not everyone was happy about the return of dragons. Some species, especially those descended from the original architects, protested. They claimed dragons were dangerous, that bringing them back was a mistake. But the protests grew weaker as time passed, because dragons were not dangerous. They were kind, patient, wise despite their youth, and they asked for nothing except friendship and the chance to exist. Admiral Daun visited the system regularly, bringing supplies and protection. She had become one of Hanul's strongest defenders. "My family was killed by council weapons," she told Tai Min one day, as they watched young dragons playing in the crystal gardens. "I spent years angry and bitter, but watching these creatures, seeing their joy and innocence, it reminds me why we fight. Not for revenge, for this, for life, for hope." 2 years after the battle, there were 50 dragons. They ranged in age from weeks old to Hanul, who was now massive, the size of a small building when fully spread out. But Hanul remained gentle, teaching the younger dragons and learning from the humans and other species around them. Tai Min had changed, too. The lonely, haunted salvage operator was gone. He smiled now, laughed. He had found purpose again. He spent his days helping care for the growing dragon population and his nights talking with Hanul about everything and nothing. Their bond had only grown stronger. It was something unique in the galaxy, a true partnership between human and dragon. Neither master nor servant, but equals. Friends who had saved each other in every way that mattered. On the 2nd anniversary of Hanul's hatching, a ceremony was held. Species from across the galaxy sent representatives. They came to officially recognize the dragons as a restored civilization, with all the rights and protections that entailed. During the ceremony, a young dragon, barely a year old with scales the color of sunrise, approached Tai Min shyly. Through the psychic connection all dragons shared, it projected a question. "Will you teach me about humans?" Tai Min knelt down to the dragon's level. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," the dragon said. "Hanul tells us that humans are special, that they are brave and kind and stubborn, that they see injustice and cannot ignore it, that they helped us when no one else would. I want to understand this. I want to know what makes humans so different." Tai Min felt his throat tighten with emotion. He looked up at Hanul, who watched with amused eyes. "You put the young one up to this, did you not?" "Perhaps," Hanul said innocently. "But the question is genuine. You humans are remarkable. You do not have psychic powers or quantum abilities. You are not the strongest or fastest, but you have something that matters more than all of that. You have heart. You care about others, even when it costs you everything. That is why my people liked teaching your species in the ancient times, and that is why I chose you to be my friend. Taemin turned back to the young dragon. Teaching you about humans will take a long time. We are complicated, contradictory. We do great things and terrible things, sometimes in the same day. I have time, the dragon said, and I want to learn. If dragons are to return to the galaxy, we should understand the species that brought us back. Please teach me. All right, Taemin said, smiling. Let us start with this. Humans believe that everyone deserves a chance. That is why we helped Hanul, not because we expected anything in return, just because it was the right thing to do. The young dragon tilted its head, processing this. This is unusual. Most species act for benefit, for gain. Most humans do too sometimes, Taemin admitted. But when it really matters, when someone needs help and no one else will give it, humans step up. We cannot leave someone behind. It is just not in our nature. Over the following months, Taemin became a teacher. Not just to one young dragon, but to many. They asked endless questions about humanity, about Earth, about human history, about the strange tendency humans had to adopt alien creatures as pets and friends. And Taemin answered them all, with Hanul adding comments from the ancient memories. It was like rebuilding a bridge that had existed millions of years ago, when dragons and early humans had first met among the stars. The crystal planet became something new, not just a memorial to dead dragons, but a living symbol of renewal. The bodies that orbited the star were given a proper ceremony, honored by every species that came to visit. The planet itself was renamed New Haven, a place where dragons could grow and learn in safety. Admiral Da-Yun assigned a permanent defense fleet to protect the system, but as months passed with no new attacks, the fleet became less military and more community. Ships from dozens of species came to visit, to meet the dragons, to learn from them, and the dragons taught. That was what they were created to do, after all. They shared their knowledge freely. They helped solve problems. They mediated disputes. They did not rule or command. They simply offered guidance to those who asked for it. 5 years after Hanul hatched, there were 300 dragons in the system, and they were beginning to spread out. Some went with human exploration ships, bonding with crews and seeing the galaxy. Others went with scientists from various species, helping them understand ancient technologies that had been built with dragon knowledge. The galaxy was learning to accept dragons again. The fear and jealousy that had led to their extinction was fading, replaced by wonder and friendship. Taemin stood on a balcony overlooking New Haven's main settlement one evening. Hanul landed beside him, now so large that the balcony groaned under the dragon's weight. "Do you ever regret it?" Hanul asked. "You were alone and peaceful before you found me. Now your life is complicated, full of responsibility and danger." Taemin laughed. "Regret? Hanul, before I found you, I was just existing, surviving, punishing myself for the past. You gave me purpose again. You gave me hope. How could I ever regret that?" "I am glad," Hanul said softly, "because you gave me everything. Life, freedom, a future. I was meant to be alone, the last of my kind, carrying genetic memories of a dead species. But you refused to let me be alone. You risked everything to help me. And now, look at what we have built together." They watched the sun set over New Haven. Young dragons flew through the air, playing and learning. Scientists from a dozen species worked side by side in laboratories. Children of various races ran through the gardens, chasing and being chased by dragon hatchlings in games that crossed all language barriers. "My species made a mistake 12 million years ago," Hanul said. "We trusted too much. We did not see the betrayal coming because we could not imagine anyone would fear kindness. But we have learned, and we will not make the same mistake again. What will you do differently? Tae-min asked. We will not just teach, Hanil said. We will also befriend. We will build connections like the one you and I share, not just with humans, though humans will always be special to us. But with anyone who chooses kindness over fear, we will create a galaxy where extinction like ours cannot happen again, because people will stand together against it. Tae-min nodded slowly. That is a good dream. It is not a dream, Hanel said. It is a promise, and dragons always keep their promises. As the stars came out above New Haven, Tae-min realized something. He had set out looking for ancient artifacts. Instead, he had found the greatest treasure in the galaxy, hope for the future. And not just any future, but one where humans and dragons and all species could stand together. Dragons had faded into myth, but myths, Tae-min had learned, have a way of becoming real again when people believe in them enough. And thanks to one stubborn human and one determined dragon, the galaxy was learning to believe once more. The last dragon egg had been found, but it was not an ending. It was a beginning.